Reborn, I got played by the scheming Jinren Qingqing. I promise you a lifetime of freedom my first life. I married Prince Wei. What a disaster that turned out to be. On my deathbed, I swore 3 things. First, if I ever got another chance, I'd be a good person. Second, I'd leave this imperial city that had been my prison for a lifetime, that I worked my tail off to make that happen. Little did I know someone else would nearly scheme themselves to death to make it come true for me that I got into a brawl with my rival from my last life right in the Empress Dowager's bedchamber. She kicked us out, and since we hadn't had our fill, we agreed to keep hashing it out in the imperial garden. That I have to say, I never expected Chai Qingxue, the delicate, soft-spoken type I remembered, to be such a tiger. Her slanted brows shot up. Are you ever going to quit? I told you. Let me go for the marriage alliance. Like hell you are. Chai Qingxue, did all that studying shrink your brain? Now you're fighting me over this? In my past life, I framed Chai Qingxue to force her into the marriage alliance so I could wed Prince Wei Yurong. On the day she left the city, she wept like rain on pear blossoms, utterly heartbroken. How could she be so completely different this time? No matter what, I was absolutely not letting her go for that alliance this time around. That I put on my old nasty sneer from the past life, rolled up my sleeves, stood on my toes, and grabbed Chai Qingxue's cloud-shaped top knot, snarling like a demon. You are not going. Hear me, fight me on this, and I'll pull every strand out of your head. The next instant, Chai Qingxue turned the tables, threw her hands up and snatched my 2-loop top knot, her stare fiercer than mine. Let's see who pulls out who's first. My maid, a yin, and Chai Qingxue's maid, Sonome, reached a silent agreement. They stood under the osmanthus tree, trembling, watching their mistresses, and dared not come closer. My head was being shaken until I was dizzy, but I didn't let up. Aren't you in love with Prince Wei? And he's in love with you. What? You're throwing that away to wade into this mess. Aren't you the one who's even more obsessed with Prince Wei? I was stonewalled. True, I loved Prince Wei Yurong and not loved. I was madly infatuated. I am the daughter of the Marquis of Ningguo and the grandniece of the Empress Dowager. My parents died when I was young, so I was raised in her household. She spoiled me rotten, which naturally made me a brat with every bad habit you can think of. Yurong was a prince, 3 years older than me. I grew up trailing behind him. Women in the palace rarely see many men, and neither did I. Men like Yurong, who had been a heartstopper since childhood, were the kind that ruined you for life with one look. I was fiercely possessive, with none of a maiden's coyness. From a young age, I already considered myself his future princess. Any girl who dared throw herself at him got the same treatment. If I was generous, a glare and some nasty words. If not, murderous intent. So my fate was just wonderful. The day Chai Qingxue was sent away for the alliance, Yurong stabbed me in the heart with his sword, railing about my venomous nature. For the 3 years I lived in his palace, he never set foot in my chambers. He treated me like a snake or a scorpion, fleeing from me the moment he could. After he ascended the throne, I theoretically should have been empress. But because he loathed me so completely, I wasn't even given a title. I was just called Consort Lin before I married him, even if people cursed me behind my back. They had to respect me to my face. After the wedding, they tore off their masks, and everyone was laughing at me. But until my death, I never learned to wear that mask. I never learned to lie low or show weakness. The louder and more piercing the mockery, the more I acted out, openly fierce and cruel. Finally, after I poisoned his favorite consort, I was confined to my own chambers, unable to leave. I was poisoned into silence and died one long, freezing winter night. On my dying day, I made 3 wishes. First, if I get another chance, I'll be a good person. Second, leave this city that's been my jail for a lifetime. Third, maybe if I'm not so obsessed with marrying you wrong, the first two will come true. With that thought, I met Chai Qingshua's eyes and answered bluntly, I don't love him anymore. Surprise flickered in her eyes, then she let out a cold smirk. A month ago, you were fighting General Zhong's daughter in the marketplace over Prince Wei, and she beat you black and blue, don't you remember? Talk about a slap in the face. But how could I help it? I'd only just been reborn today that I'd rushed straight to the Empress Dowager and offered myself for the marriage alliance. In no time for a slow character change, I cleared my throat to hide the awkwardness, my mind racing for a speech to save face. Just then, a voice sounded from nearby. I've seen a lot, but a catfight between gentle ladies? That's a first. Both Chai Qingxue and I spun that a man with a face like fine jade, dashing and distinguished, stood inside a carved rail pavilion 3 meters away. I had no idea how long he'd been standing there. His guard beside him had a face black as charcoal, rough and ugly, which only made the man seem even more extraordinary, like an immortal descended to the world, debonair and free. Jian Yueqing, my distant cousin. The Empress Dowager's nephew. He and I never exactly got along. Jian Yueqing ambled closer, his face darkening. Still won't let go. What? Brawling in the Empress Dowager's bedchamber wasn't enough. You want to stir up the whole palace too? I glared at Chai Qingxue. She lets go first. That delicate girl wouldn't let up. Why should I go first? If you drop the whole marriage alliance thing, I'll drop you. Listen to this girl, getting feisty. I snorted. Fat chance that I told the Empress Dowager first. Jian Yueqing was silent at first, then circled us like a buzzard, the corners of his mouth twitching into a smile. I wonder how the son of the pacifying Prince of Zhenchuan would feel seeing this. The two greatest beauties in the imperial city brawling for the privilege of marrying him. He must be laughing his head off inside. At those words, Chai Qingxue loosened her grip on my hair by a fraction. She frowned slightly, surprise coloring her face. The son of the pacifying Prince of Zhenchuan? Lord Jin paused, unfurling his folding fan with a showy air. That's right that I hear that son, Jiang Mushen, is plump and ugly, always wears a ghost mask. Because of that, enemy troops get so sick of looking at him, they sometimes retreat without a fight. When Lord Jin finished, Chai Qingxue let go of my two-loop top knot instantly. She curtsied. Forgive such conduct, everyone. If that's how it is, I won't snatch what the county princess fancies. Excuse me. Then she turned and left, as if struck by sudden total clarity. All the stubbornness completely gone. That I stared at her quickly retreating back and snorted. Little twerp, you thought you could fight me for it? Jian Yueqing didn't seem bothered by Chai Qingxue's rudeness. He slanted a glance at me with his long, peach blossom eyes, his voice tinged with sarcasm. What, cousin, you don't mind an ugly man? No, that can't be. I distinctly remember you're all about appearances. I'm not stupid. I could hear the nasty jab in his words, but firing back outright didn't seem wise. I just pointed at his black-faced guard and said peevishly, "Can he be uglier than that one?" With that, I ignored Jian Yueqing entirely and walked off. Only a peal of hearty laughter chased after me. Back at the mansion, I picked up a teacup and slurped a sip, calming the excitement after that encounter. Truth be told, I wasn't as relaxed as I pretended. I could only take it one step at a time. First, steer clear of Prince Wei. Just as that thought crossed my mind, I saw someone all too familiar barging into the garden, anger radiating from him, and that all too familiar sword in hand. Yan's voice was trembling. "Miss, I think Prince Wei looks pretty angry. Should we hide for a bit?" Hide my butt, he already saw us. I said that, but my traitorous hand still grabbed the Temeka tea bowl from the table and clutched it to my chest. The man drew near, sword-like brows, star-bright eyes, a figure as straight as a pine. But the fury etched between his brows was truly daunting. Tio, save my skin. I quickly blurted, Hey, calm down. It's me who's going for the marriage alliance, not Chai Qingxue. Yurong's anger didn't dissipate. It flared even more. Why are you going? I was a bit baffled. Glancing at the sword at his waist that was nearly drawn, I asked weakly, You're kidding, right? I can't even go? Yurong's body trembled slightly, looking like he was about to kill me. You? My upper body leaned back at an imperceptible snail's pace, and I was calculating how I'd make my escape when he drew his sword, when his next words sent my already wobbly rear end straight to the ground. Weren't you going to marry me? I sat on the ground, staring at his face flickering between red and white, and my lips, parted in shock, only managed sound after a few seconds. Don't you dislike me? He froze for a moment. Then his expression returned to normal, and he sneered. True. Who would like a sticky rice cake like you? Sticky rice cake. A pretty apt description. I clung to him so much in my last life. I was exactly a big sticky rice cake. I laughed dryly. Haha, thanks. Then he didn't speak, just stared at me with eyes cold as frost. Seeing he had no intention of leaving, I drawled timidly. Would Prince Wei like to stay for dinner? Somehow, I managed to enrage him again. The veins on his neck bulged, and he flung his sleeve and turned to leave, only to stop at the doorway and turn back, forcing out through gritted teeth. Lin Erhuan, you really are something. I wanted to reply with another thanks, but glancing at his whitened knuckles gripping the sword hilt, I shrank my neck. I chickened out. After he left, I set the tea bowl back on the table, my palms sweaty. Seeing him for the first time since my rebirth, though I acted calm, there were still ripples inside me. Fear and resentment. Wow. A Yan's bright voice dispelled the chill in the room. I looked over to see her giving me a thumbs up. Miss, your act of feigning disinterest is brilliant. I looked at Yan helplessly and sighed. Yan, I really don't like him anymore. She clearly didn't believe me, which made sense. In my last life, I'd entered the prince's residence alone, just because Yurong said I could marry him. But I couldn't bring a Yin with me. In his eyes, I was so wicked that my personal maid must have given me plenty of evil advice. So, a Yin, who grew up with me, was sent back to our hometown, married off to a lame husband who beat and cursed her, and in the end she couldn't take it and jumped into a river to her death. All this news was told to me by Yurong after I was permanently confined to my palace. He also said that karma was real. Anyone connected to me would come to a bad end. My parents died because I jinxed them, and my maid also met a miserable end, all because of my countless evil deeds and deep sins that time. I didn't want to live anymore, so I shot back. Is that so? What about you? Will you have a good ending? He was the emperor, the supreme ruler, holding the power of life and death. My words offended imperial dignity, and he flew into a rage, slapping me. But he didn't kill me. Back then, I still harbored a sliver of delusion, thinking he couldn't bear to kill me. But when I was alone in that perpetually cold and gloomy palace, enduring year after year, my body wasting away little by little, I finally understood. He wanted me to savor the torment of long, lonely suffering. Such torture once was enough. Now that I think about it, it was the loneliness of the cold palace that taught me self-mockery. Otherwise, how could I face him so easily now? I stared at Yan's round, moon-like face and asked, Yan, if I marry into Prince Wei's mansion and don't bring you, would you be sad? Huh. Yan's mouth fell open, and after a moment she mumbled glumly, "This servant would certainly be sad, but if marrying Prince Wei would make you very, very happy, miss, then it would be worth it even without me." My nose stung, and tears fell. Yan jumped in fright. "Miss, did I say something wrong?" I wiped away the tears, held her hand, and said firmly, "Rest assured, in this life, no matter where I go, I will bring you with me." Back when I clung to Yurong constantly, he was annoyed to death. Now that I wasn't clinging to him, he kept picking fights every few days. Men are so cheap. Can't stand the drop in attention, so they come back to act cheap. Just like now. He went and told the Empress Dowager that I hadn't been to Zishan Hall to study for days, nor to practice archery and riding. The reason I wasn't going was precisely to avoid him, but he, on the contrary, insisted on seeing me. But I didn't want to go anywhere. I just stayed in my mansion, fattening up. I had no idea what kind of bewitching potion he fed the Empress Dowager, but she ordered me to attend the polo match without fail. Fine. Today, this lady will make a dazzling appearance. After a few days of resting at home, my mindset had mostly recovered, but don't let me see him. Seeing him just makes me furious. Sure enough, as soon as I arrived at the field, I could feel his icy stare even through 2 or 3 tents that I didn't bother with him at all. Just went off to get my little red horse and kept far away. Yin wanted a pair of gold bracelets with plum blossom patterns, so I won them for her, planning to give them to her secretly once back home. After one round, I was thirsty, and went back to the tent to get some water. Narrow is the path. I ran into Zhongyu, who was also thirsty. This general's daughter, born into a martial family, was notoriously mean-spirited. Before we were married, we'd often come to blows over Yurong. Later, after Yurong ascended the throne and took her into the palace, our conflicts only intensified. Meeting my old enemy now, I tried my best to rein in my temper and not see red, but someone always had to provoke. Zhongyu, with a dagger hidden behind her smile, said, "Your Grace played well that last round, but I'd say your riding skills have declined these past 2 years. Only a few rounds, and you're already out of breath. Looks like you need a serious boost." I didn't want to start an argument, so I forced a dry laugh. "Yes, you're right." She hadn't expected me to be so calm. She rubbed her hands together and pressed on. "Why aren't you telling me off? Huh? Had these people's cheapness seeped into their bones? You just said I need a boost. Arguing wastes energy, and I need to conserve it." Zhongyu sized me up and down. "Lin Erhuan, you're not the same as you used to be." I couldn't be bothered to explain and brushed it off with a joke. Weak constitution, so naturally I'm different. The words had barely left my lips when Yurong's voice cut in. "Is that so? If your health is so poor, yet you still want to go through with the political marriage, are you tired of living that much?" Turning around, I saw him leaning against the mahogany pillars supporting the tent, watching me with a pensive look. Why was this man so sharp-tongued? I traced the rim of my cup with a forefinger and met his eyes. I've heard Wei Wang has wide connections and knows many extraordinary people. That if so, I'll entrust Wei Wang to find some skilled physician to take my pulse and restore me, so I can eke out a few more years after I head to the fief of the Jinshuan prince. Yurong's eyes darkened. You could tell at once he was angry again. Zhongyu looked utterly incredulous and butted in. "You can't be serious, Lin Erhuan. Are you really going through with the alliance marriage?" I drained the last of my tea into my mouth and set the cup down on the small table with a decisive clink. "Yes, I want to see a different world. What's the point of hanging around the imperial city forever?" With that, I strode toward the exit. As I passed by Yurong, his cold voice stopped me. I've never seen anyone so shameless. The matter of the marriage alliance hasn't been settled by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, yet here you are, already eager to find yourself a husband. Shameless, that day your darling Chai Qingxue came to blows with me in the palace. Why didn't you call her shameless then? Why pick on me alone? Logically, Wei Wang should be thinking about how to keep his sweetheart, not wasting his thoughts on me. He stepped up beside me, towering over me from above. Ridiculous. Since when has this prince ever wasted his thoughts on you? Though I kept telling myself it didn't matter, his words still sent an unavoidable chill through my heart. Maybe because I didn't answer, he went on, words like hidden weapons. What's the matter? You used to be so eloquent, and now you have nothing to say? I raised my head to meet his mocking gaze and forced a cold sneer. Is that so? If Wei Wang claims he has never wasted his thoughts on me, then please stop meddling in whether I go to the academy or learn riding and archery. Running to an elder to tattle. That's something only a 3-year-old would do. Struck by the heart of the matter, he choked up for a moment. After a pause, his expression returned to its usual cold arrogance, and he continued, if members of the royal family waste their time and refuse to improve, can they still claim the moral high ground? No matter how much I waste, it's none of your business. I walked away, leaving that icy stare behind me, a stifled resentment swelling in my chest. I wandered alone through the woods surrounding the tournament grounds. When I reached a parasol tree and saw no one around, the temper of my past life, willful and fiery, couldn't help but flared as I pulled out my riding crop and lashed the tree trunk furiously. In my last life, I'd done unspeakable things for this man. Such a love-blinded fool. Why, after suffering an entire lifetime of torment, did I still have to see him again? So infuriating. With that thought, I put more strength into each strike. Suddenly a voice drifted down from above. Your Grace, why take it out on a tree? I looked up. Sunlight shafted through the leaves, striking my eyes so I could barely make out his face. I shaded my brow with my hand, and a face both strange and familiar emerged. It was that ugly guard of Jian Yueqing's. What are you doing up there? The ugly man leaped down from the branch, light as a swallow, and landed before me. That a leaf drifted lazily down and landed on his hair crown. He raised a hand to brush it away. To answer your Grace, this humble one was resting up there. I had just fallen asleep when I saw your Grace flogging the tree in a fury. He was very tall, and I had to tilt my chin up to address him, though I felt that gave me a bit more authority. Are you blaming me for waking you? How could I? I was sleeping out of sheer boredom, but watching your Grace wield that whip was quite amusing. That it cured my boredom nicely. I feigned displeasure. Oh, so I've become your entertainment. He held his expression perfectly steady and said, gently, if people can amuse each other, that's actually a good thing. So by your logic, even mockery can be good? Naturally not. But in the end, it depends on how you look at it. He smiled, his eyes like stars, and I felt a strange, unexpected spark of beauty. But after scrutinizing him a few moments, I was put off by his coarse, ugly face and looked away. Only now did I notice the scar across his already dark, rough forehead. Truly hideous, but hideous as he was, his words made a certain sense. What's your name? This humble one is called Qian Miao. Ugly face, ugly name. I pursed my lips. Keep me company and chat a while. He smiled. All right. But don't smile at me. His smile vanished, replaced by pure bewilderment. Why can't this humble one even smile? I stepped onto a small mound of earth at the tree's roots, trying to raise myself a bit higher, and declared, when you smile, your face wrinkles up and looks even worse. It makes me uncomfortable. After a moment of silence, Qian Miao burst out laughing that I looked at him. He was pretty big-hearted. Calling him ugly, and he just laughed. He scratched the space between his brows, his eyes brimming with mirth as he looked at me. Your Grace, that's the second time you've called me ugly. Say it a third time, and I'll actually be hurt. I gave a light cough and said, Fine, I won't say it anymore, that I'll just keep it to myself. Qian Miao pressed a hand to his forehead and smiled bitterly. The guy was impossible. Told him not to laugh. And he laughed even harder. I picked up a twig and started doodling absently in the dirt. Leaning against the tree trunk, arms crossed, Qian Miao said, Your Grace won those bracelets? I jangled my wrist and nodded. He went on. Would you like to win something really good? I stroked the gold bracelets, shrugging indifferently. These are pretty good too. I heard that the best prize today is the Empress Dowager's luminous night pearl from her phoenix crown. I shot him a glance, then broke the twig into a dozen pieces and crouched to build a little bridge on the ground. I don't care. As your Grace is of royal blood, you should know better than I do that a luminous pearl from a phoenix crown is equivalent to an imperial golden plaque. A life-saving warrant, in a crucial moment. It could be of great use. This caught my attention, and I looked up. Right, how had I forgotten? In my past life, the Empress Dowager had decreed my marriage to Yurong. Back then, I'd been infatuated with him and went willingly. But if the Empress Dowager decreed that marriage again in this life, what grounds would I have to refuse? Defying an edict would be disastrous. Yet if I possessed the luminous pearl, I'd have some bargaining chip. Still, this man was a mere acquaintance. Why tell me this? I fixed my gaze on Qian Miao. Why are you telling me this? What's your motive? He met my stare openly, speaking unhurriedly. That day when your Grace and Chancellor Chai's daughter fought inside the palace. It was over the marriage alliance. I don't know why you're so eager to go through with it. But I can vaguely guess that some trouble has forced you to want to leave the imperial city. If your Grace holds the luminous pearl, then whether you go through with the marriage or not, at least when trouble comes, you'll have something to rely on. A chill ran down my back. This man's mind was frighteningly astute. Trying to appear composed, I stared at Qian Miao. Sensing my distrust, he cupped his fist in a salute. This humble one means no ill will. Your Grace is Lord Jian's cousin. Helping you is only natural. Besides, I feel a special affinity with your Grace, as if we've known each other for ages. That I hate to see you entangled in trouble. Regardless of whether his words were true or false, I did want that pearl. That I took a step forward. The luminous pearl is precious, as you and I both know, and everyone else knows it too. My polo skills are hardly top-notch. Taking the field doesn't guarantee a win. Qian Miao narrowed his eyes. Today, the only person who can compete with your Grace for the prize is General Zhong's daughter. Beating her isn't difficult. Are you sure? I licked my lips. Not to discourage myself, but Zhong Yu's polo skills are beyond any noble lady in the imperial city. Even if I fought with everything I had, I might only manage a draw. She has a weakness. Her right wrist is stiff, so she habitually uses her left hand. That if your Grace forces her to use her right hand to strike the ball, you might not lose. Surprised, I asked, how do you know? Careful observation reveals it. I frowned. Wouldn't that be a bit unsportsmanlike? Qian Miao's tone was perfectly even. Just win. Besides, this isn't a battle. No one will be hurt. I returned to the tournament grounds, and that pest Zhong Yu came sidling over to needle me. Wei Wang just won a fine sword for me, and he even invited me to the Lantern Festival outing. I didn't spare her a glance and drawled, Keep gloating, and come the Lantern Festival, I'll show up and ruin your little rendezvous. You think you can? Zhong Yu sneered, then narrowed her eyes at me. I knew you still had designs on Wei Wang. All this talk about a marriage alliance is just playing hard to get. I wiped my nose, giving her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Think what you like. She'd meant to provoke me, but seeing me so indifferent, her face flushed red. Just then, a field lackey announced, "One luminous night pearl, bestowed by the Empress Dowager." Zhong Yu's eyes darted and she said, "Lin Erhuan, how about this? We play a game of polo that if you win, I'll never compete with you for Wei Wang again. But if I win, from this day forward, you won't speak a single word to him." I spat out a grape skin, curled my lip, and said, "I just want the pearl." Zhong Yu drew the riding crop from her bosom and tilted her chin at me smugly. "Don't talk tough. When you lose and start crying, don't say I didn't warn you, Lin Erhuan." I flicked a quick glance at her right wrist and grinned. Who's afraid of whom? The match began. True to what the ugly man had said, Zhong Yu's right hand was clearly clumsy. Even so, her overall skill far exceeded mine, that I had to push myself to the limit just to match her goal for goal. Why stamina gradually drained, and the match grew white hot. With the final ball set to decide the outcome, I played my trump card. Hanging my entire body from the reins with one foot dangling and the other set in the stirrup, I forced Zhong Yu to use only her right hand to strike. At that moment, a young, unfamiliar player on our side charged up and pressed her from the right. Caught off guard, Zhong Yu's mallet was deflected. The ball rolled from beneath the horse's hooves toward me. I swung and scored. But in the next instant, my horse's hoof slipped, I lost my balance and smashed to the ground. A few seconds later, the pain caught up, especially in my left shoulder and arm, as if crushed by a blunt instrument, making me tremble. Zhong Yu stormed over, whip in hand, furious, and shrieked, "Lin Erhuan, you cheated." Her hand gripping the whip trembled slightly, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the lash would land on me at any second. Through a haze, I saw a group of people striding rapidly toward us. To my surprise, the one at the front was Yurong. He lifted me in his arms and hurried back, ordering a servant beside him, "Prepare a carriage to the Marquis's manor." Zhong Yu screamed behind us, "This match doesn't count. Lin Erhuan schemed against me. The win is tainted." Yurong ignored her and carried me forward. I don't know if it was my imagination, but Yurong's eyes were brimming with worry. Miraculously, no bones were broken. The imperial physician prescribed some medicine to soothe bruising and treat the scrapes, then left. The pain was so intense I couldn't be bothered that Yurong was still in the room. I lay there panting and groaning. Yurong walked over to my bedside, his face still a block of ice. After a long silence, he said coldly, "Lin Erhuan, what do you want me to say? For the sake of winning, you resorted to tricks and scheming, even risking your life." I winced in pain but shot back relentlessly. "What does my risking my life have to do with you? Didn't you play that match for my sake?" I stared at him wide-eyed. I'd fought for the pearl to have a way to refuse the Empress Dowager's marriage decree. Did he know that? That was impossible, right? But from Yurong's expression, I detected no oddity. I asked, "Since you know, then stop making trouble for me from now on." For some reason, the tips of Yurong's ears reddened. He gave a light cough. "You really did it for me?" I recalled Zhong Yu's words before the match and realized he'd misunderstood. I smiled and said, "Why so that you'll stay far away from me." His brows furrowed, and anger flickered instantly in his eyes. "You." But within seconds, the anger faded, replaced by a sneer. "Playing hard to get. Haven't you tired of that game yet?" I closed my eyes and snapped, "Just go." Yurong's face darkened. He flung his cloak back and strode toward the door. But at the threshold, he suddenly stopped. He tossed a brocade box onto the table and said coldly, "The luminous pearl you wanted." With that, he turned and left without another word. Late at night, A yin was curled up, dozing by my bedside. After her head thumped against the bed frame for the 13th time, I called her awake and told her to go back to her room and get some proper sleep. Her voice thick with drowsiness, she said, "Princess, I'm supposed to look after you." I glanced at the red mark on her forehead and sighed. "You're like a human gong. I'm afraid you'll knock yourself out before you can tend to me." A yin pouted and stared at me with big, pleading eyes. "Tell you what, you can sleep in the adjacent room for now. If I need you, I'll ring the bell." So saying, I looked up at the copper bell hung on the bed curtains. A yin mumbled an "oh," nudged the cloth ribbon tied to the bell a bit closer to my pillow, then reluctantly glanced back at me twice before disappearing into the adjoining room. Sleep wouldn't come from the pain gnawing inside me. I could barely move. I lay there staring at the brocade box on the table, lost in thought, and never noticed a figure step up beside my bed. All at once a shadow loomed over me, and a white porcelain vial was set gently into the medicine case by my bedside. It nearly startled a scream out of me, but the shadow had quick hands. It clamped down over my mouth just before the scream could break. "Wide awake?" the whisper asked. That I reached for the bell ribbon, but the shadow had already anticipated that too and pressed my hand down. "It's me, Qian Miao." He angled himself slightly, and moonlight traced the edge of his profile. For once, he didn't look as hideous as he did in daylight. Instead, his face had a stark, cool quality. "This humble one came to deliver medicine to you. Princess, please don't be afraid, and please don't scream, or I'll lose my head." I blinked. He let his hand fall away from my mouth. "You've got some nerve," I hissed, glaring at him. "Breaking into the Marquis's manor at night. Don't you fear getting beaten to death?" He corrected me. "It's stealthy reconnaissance." With that, he drew the white bottle from the medicine case and gave it a shake. "Your Grace, your fall this time will heal well enough with the imperial doctor's prescription, but it won't dull your suffering. That my medicine can ease the pain, at least enough for you to get a decent night's sleep." I cast a suspicious glance at the bottle, but Qian Miao seemed to read my thoughts. He popped a black pill from the vial and swallowed it himself. "Not poisoned. If your Grace distrusts me, I'll just stay here half an hour, see if I start writhing in agony." I snorted wryly. "Oh, that's beneath me. I wouldn't judge another's heart by my own shadow, would I? Fine, since I can't sleep anyway. You can keep me company a little. Put the medicine aside. I'll take it later." Qian Miao gave a faint laugh. He stared straight at me, saying nothing. That stillness set my nerves jangling. "What? Poisoned?" He shook his head, his eyes now soft, his voice drenched in a thick apology. "Forgive me. I should never have let you compete today." I gave a light sigh and lifted my hand a little. "It wasn't your fault. Without the lure of that pearl, even the Jade Emperor couldn't have driven me onto that field." I tipped my chin toward the brocade box. "If I should thank anyone, it's you. If you hadn't guided me, I'd never have won that pearl." He turned back to glance at the box, his expression blank. "Now I understand your nature. Your Grace, I'll never again let you give your body and soul so recklessly." A wry smile tugged at my lips. "If you want something badly enough, you have to fight tooth and nail." Qian Miao reached out and swept a stray lock of hair off my lips. His eyes gleamed steadily, holding unspoken words. Maybe the night veiled his face. Maybe I just couldn't see it clearly, but I saw that his eyes swam with whole constellations, and somehow that stirred my own steady heart into chaos. I lowered my gaze to the tip of his hand, which he was already drawing back, and changed the subject. "Can't deny it. Even if the rest of you is ugly as sin, your hands are gorgeous. Playing hard to get, playing hard to get? I'm so sick of it. Does everyone who sees me have to say that? Don't they have any other words?" I closed my eyes and said, irritated. Just go. Yurang's face darkened. He flung his cloak back and strode toward the door. At the threshold he suddenly turned, hurled a brocade box onto the table, and said coldly, "Here's your luminous pearl." Without another word, he turned and left. In the deep quiet of the night, a yin dozed beside my bed. After her head knocked against the bed frame for the 13th time, I woke her. "Go back to your room and sleep." Her voice thick with exhaustion, she said, "My lady, I have to attend you." I glanced at the red mark on her forehead and sighed. "You keep banging your head like a temple gong that I'm afraid before you've attended me, you'll knock yourself out." A yin pouted and looked at me beseechingly. "All right, go sleep in the little side chamber. I'll ring the bell if I need anything." I lifted my gaze to the brass bell hanging from the bed canopy. With a soft, "Oh," she moved the bell cord closer to my pillow, then walked out, glancing back at me again and again until she disappeared into the next room. Pain kept me awake that I couldn't move at all, so I just stared blankly at the brocade box on the table, lost in thought. I didn't notice the figure standing beside my bed, that a shadow fell over me, that a white porcelain bottle was gently set into the medicine box by the bed, that I nearly screamed. The shadow clapped a hand over my gaping mouth. "Not asleep?" a voice asked. I tried to grab the bell cord, but he had already seized my hand. "It's me, Qian Miao." He shifted a little. The moonlight from outside traced the line of his profile, making him look less repulsive than in daylight, even giving him a touch of cool aloofness. "I came to bring you medicine. That don't be afraid, and please, don't cry out, or it will cost me my life." I blinked. He lifted his hand. Eyes wide, I whispered, "Have you lost your mind? Sneaking into the Marquis's residence at night? Aren't you afraid you'll be beaten to death?" He corrected me. "It's a nighttime visit." He took out the white porcelain bottle and shook it. "The medicine the imperial physician prescribed will heal your injuries, but it won't stop the pain. This one can ease it enough to let you sleep well tonight." I stared at the bottle, eyes narrowing. As if reading my mind. Qian Miao immediately plucked a black pill from the bottle and swallowed it. "It's not poison. If you still don't trust me, I'll stay here for half an hour so you can see whether I drop dead." I forced a dry laugh. What kind of talk is that? How could I measure a gentleman's heart with a petty one? Find out I can't sleep anyway, so stay and chat with me. Put the medicine aside for now. I'll take it later. Qian Miao gave a soft smile and fixed his eyes on me without speaking. His steady gaze unsettled me. "What is it? Poison taking effect already?" He shook his head, his eyes gentle and his voice very soft, full of apology. "Forgive me that I should never have let you fight that match." I let out a breath and lifted my hand a little. "Why blame you? If I hadn't wanted that luminous pearl, not even an imperial decree could have made me go." I pointed at the brocade box on the table. "I should be thanking you. Without your guidance, I wouldn't have won it." He glanced back at the box, his expression unchanging. "Now I understand your temperament, my lady. I won't let you throw yourself recklessly into danger again." I pulled at the corner of my mouth. "If you want something badly enough, you have to fight tooth and nail." Qian Miao reached out and swept a stray lock of hair off my lips. His eyes gleamed, holding words he didn't say. Maybe the night blurred his face. Maybe I just couldn't see it clearly, but I saw that his eyes swam with whole constellations, and somehow that stirred my own steady heart into chaos. I lowered my gaze to the hand he was already drawing back and changed the subject. "I'll admit, even if the rest of you is ugly as sin, your hands are gorgeous." At that, his hand froze in midair. After a few seconds, he laughed quietly. "Still taking the chance to mock me, my lady?" I tightened my lips. "It's true, I swear. Long knuckles, slender, even, They don't exactly match the man attached. He leaned a little closer. So I really am that hideous? Hideous enough for you to keep mentioning it all the time? The sudden nearness blotted out the moonlight with his framed eye in the silence of the night. The only sounds were our breathing, one steady and even, the other short and flustered that I swallowed involuntarily, then gave a light cough. I don't mention you all the time. And heavens, you're too close. You're blocking the light. He didn't move. I tried to threaten him. Move your head out of the way, or I'll ring that bell. Qian Miao actually reached up and tugged the bell cord that a crisp chime rang through the room that I stared at him, holding my breath, already picturing the torturous death he would suffer. When a string of snores drifted from the side chamber, Qian Miao chuckled softly. Your maid truly sleeps like the dead. Although I knew he probably couldn't see me clearly, I still rolled my eyes. Yen. Yen. You are absolutely incredible. I shut my eyes, unwilling to talk to him anymore. He picked up the white porcelain bottle on the bedside table. Half an hour has passed, and I'm still alive. There's no poison. Please rest assured and take it. I looked up at him and gave a grudging hum. He took out a pill and placed it in my mouth, his movements gentle, his fingertips cool. Then he said, "Sleep well," and with a flicker of his shadow, disappeared into the night. That I have to say, the medicine Qian Miao gave me truly worked wonders. The pain eased considerably, and I fell asleep much faster than before. About half a month later, my injuries had mostly healed. During my recovery, Yurang came to see me twice, and both times I angered him into leaving. The annual Lantern Festival arrived, with merchants from all over selling local treats and trinkets, along with every kind of colorful lantern. That it was a dazzling spectacle that in past years, I would never have missed it. But this year, I didn't want to go. The thought of running into Yurang made me want to lock myself away. That if I couldn't provoke him, I could at least avoid him. But Yin wheedled and coaxed me with such coquettishness, and I wanted to spoil her, so I gave in and went. Though I'd been reluctant, once I was at the festival, all those strange and curious novelties immediately captivated me. That I stood at a sugar figurine stall waiting for a Yin to come back with snowball hawthorns, watching the vendor, with all kinds of sugar figurines stuck in his hair, laughing along with the children. I laughed. I sighed inwardly. Small businesses really aren't easy. That I turned my head and spotted Yurang's figure in the crowd. He was staring at me. My heart sank, and I spun around to walk away. The moment I turned, I crashed into someone's chest. That I was about to apologize when a familiar voice spoke. In such a hurry, my lady? I looked up. What met my eyes was a fierce, hideous Taotai masked. My gaze flicked backward. Qian Miao, get me out of here. Something disgusting is coming. Under the mask, the corner of his lips curved. Hide and seek happens to be my specialty. The words were barely out when he pressed a mask onto my face, took my hand, and started running. I glanced back. The street's bright lanterns lit up the fury on Yurang's face. He shoved through the crowd, chasing after us. But amid our frantic sprint, he gradually shrank into a faint and disappeared at a TA corner in an open space. Qian Miao pulled me onto a glossy-coated horse and raced straight toward the outskirts. The moon hung high above, the wind singing past my ears. I laughed with wild abandon, casting aside all the reserve of a noble lady. Like a man, I hollered, "Damn, that felt good." It was the most refreshing moment I'd had since being reborn. The horse's hooves flew, splashing through puddles. Qian Miao shook the reins slightly and laughed into my ear. The real good times are still ahead. We came to a stop on a broad hillside. As we dismounted, I looked up at the starry sky and shouted, letting all the stifled frustration out of my chest. I really want to see an even wider sky. Qian Miao stood with his hands behind his back, looking at me sideways. After a long pause, he said, "If you had the chance to go, would you dare?" I shot him a look. Why wouldn't I? I pulled off the mask, only then discovering it was a hideous, ugly porcupine that I punched him on the arm. "Why'd you give me such an ugly mask?" He laughed. "Usually you're so dazzlingly bright. Without a trace of ugliness, I was just curious to see what you'd look like wearing one." I curled my lip. Sick sense of humor. My finger traced the porcupine's tusks. Now I see being a little ugly might be a good thing, that a face that's too striking hides the truth. As I said that, I was thinking of you Rang's elegant, refined good looks, and how in my past life I'd lost my heart and mind to them. Qian Miao chuckled. "Is that your way of comforting me?" I blinked. "To be honest, now that I've gotten used to you, you're not actually ugly." He gave a soft laugh and said nothing that I glanced at him, put the mask back on, and said, "I used to not know how to live with a mask on, but by now, I think I should learn." Qian Miao looked at me. His eyes deep. He took off his mask and said, "What if beneath the mask there's another mask?" I didn't understand his meaning that I was about to ask, but he turned and walked a few steps away. He sat down with his back against a boulder and closed his eyes to rest. I moved my lips slightly, but swallowed all my questions. In the dead of night, he brought me to a spot not far from the city gate. To avoid unnecessary trouble, he let me ride back alone. I rode the horse through the empty streets. When I reached the Marquis's manor gate, a yin rushed up, panic written all over her face. "My lady, where did you go?" I patted her hand. "Never mind where that I'm back now." But the Prince of Wei, I was utterly exhausted. The words Prince of Wei. I waved her off and hurried into the manor. The instant I entered my room, I saw you Rang sitting upright in an armchair, staring at me with icy eyes. My heart tightened, but I kept my expression unchanged. "What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" He leaned back and rubbed his wrist with his thumb. "I should be asking you the same question. Where have you been?" I shot him a glance. "What's it to you?" He suddenly rose, rushed forward, and grabbed my shoulders. His voice was sharp and trembling with fury. "That man at the Lantern Festival. Who was he?" "So many men at the festival." "Which one do you mean, Your Highness?" His eyes instantly turned sinister. "Lin Erhuan. Don't play dumb with me. Don't tell me you don't know the man who took you away." I pretended to realize. "Oh, you mean him." Yu Rang's grip on my shoulders tightened painfully. "Who is he? Tell me." I gave a cold laugh and said slowly, "What? Is Your Highness interested in my lover?" Yu Rang froze for a moment. Then fury exploded across his face, twisting his normally handsome features. He gritted his teeth. "Lin Erhuan, have you no shame?" I narrowed my eyes at him, inches away. "So in your world, if I like you, I have a face. If I like someone else, I don't?" He studied me for a few seconds, his voice slightly trembling. "Do you really not like me anymore?" Without a shred of hesitation, I said, "No." In the next instant, he wrapped his arm around my waist, pulled me hard against him, and a storm of kisses came down on me. And no matter how I struggled, his arms never loosened. He yanked open the front of my short jacket with brutal force. The heat of his lips and teeth brushed the skin of my chest. My eyelashes fell shut, and tears spilled. Abruptly, he stopped dead. I looked down to follow his gaze. His finger lightly traced a red scar above my heart. "When were you wounded by a sword?" His brow was furrowed, his eyes full of disbelief. The tears slid down my cheek. I met his eyes and said coldly, "If Your Highness can't remember, forget it." Of course he couldn't remember. That scar was from another lifetime that it had returned with me as a reminder never to lose my head for love again. His face was steeped in shock. "When did I ever wound you?" I just looked at him, silent. Slowly, his grip loosened. His face clouded with confusion. My legs gave way, and I slid down the doorframe to sit on the floor. That I hunched forward, wrapped my arms around myself, and refused to look at him. You vented your anger and resentment. Will you leave now? He paused, then continued. You rest well first, I will talk another day. After he finished speaking, he lifted his foot, stepped over the threshold, and left. Once the sound of his footsteps faded, Ayan rushed over and threw her arms around me, her voice urgent. My lady, did the Prince of Wei hurt you? I unclenched my fist to reveal four deep red marks where my nails had bitten into my palm. Meeting Ayan's worried gaze, I gently patted her arm and said slowly, "It's nothing, it's over." The worst of my suffering was already behind me. What I faced now barely counted as hardship. Ayan fell silent for a moment, then said, "My lady, I always used to think that marrying the Prince of Wei would bring you every kind of happiness. But now, I truly feel that if it doesn't happen, it might be for the best." I forced a smile. "Don't worry, I end this life. I absolutely will not marry him. I promise you'll get your wish. And in that, my own wish would be granted too." Just before dawn, that scoundrel Qian Miao paid another stealthy visit to my bedchamber. Lying in bed, I watched him lift the window and slip inside with practiced ease. "Are you addicted to breaking into the Marquis's residence at night?" I said drily. He stood with hands lowered by the window to eye in the candlelight. He smiled lightly. "Why not? After all, I'm your lover." My mouth dropped. "You planted a spy in the mansion?" He pointed a finger toward the roof. "I've been up there the whole time." I glanced upward, irritated. Then while I was being bullied, why didn't my lover swoop in and play the hero? He shrugged, an innocent look in his eyes. "He brought a whole squad of guards. That I'm just one man, couldn't win." I rolled my eyes. Coward, completely unreliable. Qian Miao stepped closer and sat by my bedside, smiling. "No need to rush to achieve great things. You must first lie low and endure, retreat to advance. Only then can you seize certain victory with one well-aimed strike." I gave him another free eye roll. Mystifying nonsense. Then his gaze settled near my heart. "Was it really him who gave you that wound? What difference does it make who stabbed me? Whoever did it, let them suffer the same pain." I shook my head. "There's no need." Seeing he wanted to press further, I changed the subject. "Qian Miao, let me ask you something. That if the one you loved didn't love you back, what would you do?" For some reason, he looked at me with dark, unreadable eyes. Then he curled his lips. "First, marry her, then figure it out." I exhaled. "What if the person you love doesn't love you, and after you finally stop loving them, they come back for you?" This time Qian Miao didn't hesitate at all. "Tell them to get lost." I burst out laughing. "That harsh. You can walk backward for a while, but you won't get far." As he spoke, he rose and moved to the window. "I hope you never look back, that we need to keep looking forward." His voice was deep, his silhouette resolute. Without quite knowing how, he gave me an immense sense of courage. Long after Qian Miao had climbed back out the window, I still stood there, watching night dissolve into the first pale light of morning, listening to Ayan's earth-shaking snores from the small room next door. Finally, like a fool, I smiled. One morning, right in the middle of a lovely dream, Ayan burst in with a ruckus and shook me awake. Before I could get angry, she announced with a face like the kitchen was on fire, "My lady, it's all over. The Prince of Wei has petitioned the Empress Dowager for a marriage decree. He wants to marry you." I snapped, fully awake, and grabbed her arm. "For real?" Ayan winced at my grip, brow creased. "My lady, are you happy about this, or furious?" "Furious. Bloody hell." I leapt up, pulling on clothes as I spoke. "Who told you?" The moment the prince left her grace's chambers, it was all over the palace. Damn! Words spread like a wildfire. My lady, stop philosophizing and come up with a plan. I kicked on my shoes and rushed out, shouting, "Prepare the carriage. I'm going to the palace." I had barely reached the palace gate when Jian Mushen blocked my carriage. "Move aside, get out of my way," I practically screamed. Jian Mushen remained unhurried. "I advised my cousin not to enter the palace today." I frowned. "What?" "The Empress Dowager and His Majesty are holding a banquet for the son of Prince Qian. Even if you go, they likely won't have time to see you. And if I insist on going, then if you annoy the Empress Dowager and the Emperor, don't say this cousin didn't warn you." Enraged, I pounded my thigh. Damn that Prince Qian's son. Couldn't he have shown up at any worse time? Jian Mushen raised a brow. "He's here for an alliance marriage, naturally." The words alliance marriage made my eyes gleam bright as mirrors. "Has the candidate been chosen?" "Not yet. But," he paused for effect, "it won't be you, cousin. After all, the Prince of Wei just asked for your hand from the Empress Dowager." Hearing that, I felt ready to jump out and beat him. Pinching my side hard, I let out a long breath and said through gritted teeth, "That remains to be seen." I ordered the driver to turn back on the way. I told Ian to go keep watch at the post station where Prince Qian's son was staying and report to me immediately if there was any news. Once home, I bathed, perfumed myself, and dressed meticulously. That I rummaged through my wardrobe again and again before choosing an embroidered green silk gown reserved only for palace banquets. I had the most clever-handed maid in the house style my hair in an exquisite updo and pinned in a top-quality white jade hairpin. Sitting before the mirror, my thoughts were a tangled mess. About 2 hours later, Ian came scurrying back, saying Jiang Mushen had just returned to the station. Shaking out the hem of my skirt, I headed out. "Ian, tell me, dressed like this, will Prince Qian's son fall in love with me at first sight and be so eager he'll marry me on the spot?" Ian's face clouded with difficulty. "Why is my lady throwing herself at that ugly winter melon?" Frowning, I scolded softly, "Watch your mouth. That ugly winter melon could very well be my future husband. And stop calling him an ugly winter melon." Ian held up 2 fingers, shoulders hunched. "My lady, you just said it twice yourself." I pouted. "Oh, just tell me." Staring at me like this, "Will he be smitten?" Ian looked me over from head to toe and nodded forcefully. "Don't worry. That ugly winter melon grew up on a godforsaken borderland where beauties are nowhere to be found. When my lady stands before him, you'll be so gorgeous he'll croak with delight." "Really, you think I can truly dazzle Jiang Mushen?" Ian nodded again, like a devoted death row soldier. And so, with me asking and her praising, we boosted each other's courage all the way to the post station gate. Jiang Mushen's guards stopped and questioned me. I showed the marquee residence's pass, and they let me in, but Ian was barred outside. That I signaled her with my eyes to wait at the tavern across the street. Uneasy, I followed the escorting guard up to the 2nd floor, through a twisting maze of corridors, until we stopped before an upper class suite. The guard announced me, and from inside came the word, "Enter." He pushed open half the door, gestured me in, and I took a light breath, then stepped into the room. The chamber was furnished in refined antique style, with a faint, ghostly fragrance of bamboo in the air. Glancing sideways, I saw a tall, lean figure standing before a screen, head lowered as he wiped a longsword. Perhaps sensing my gaze, he turned around and smiled. "The lady's presence is an unexpected honor that I, Jiang Mushen, am most deeply flattered. May I ask what brings you here?" The moment he turned, I was completely stunned. Only one thought filled my mind. That damn Jian Mushen. He lied to me. Everything he said about a bloated figure and crude features. It was all rubbish. The man before me had exquisite bone structure. His thick brows swept like sharp swords into his hairline. His eyes clear as stars. His nose a proud peak. Even the laughter lines by his lips were striking. As for his build, broad-shouldered, solid-chested, with faint lines of muscle visible even under his ink-black robe. Even Yu Rang, who trained in martial arts year-round, paled in comparison. Are you staring like this because my appearance is so hideous it shocked you, my lady? Coming back to myself, I realized Jiang Mushen was looking at me with smiling eyes that I cleared my throat and replied, "The general jests. Your looks are divine that if one is startled, it's only by your brilliance." Jiang Mushen set down his sword, seated himself beside a small table, and repeated, "What important matter has brought my lady here today?" I steadied my breath and got straight to the point. Has the general come to the capital for an alliance marriage? Jiang Mushen propped his chin on one hand, indifferent. Is that not common knowledge? In that case, would the general marry me? Oh, his finger paused at the corner of his eye. To receive my lady's high regard, I am moved to tears. But why do I, of all people, find favor with you? Because I don't want to marry the Prince of Wei. So I have to marry you. I licked my lips. The general is a young hero, full of mettle and dash that I've admired you for a long time. Jiang Mushen looked me straight in the eye. And I blanked. And what else? My brain raced. Then I gave a light clap. Also, the general is so extraordinarily handsome that anyone who sees you must exclaim at such divine bearing that I'm no exception. Jiang Mushen gave a soft laugh. From these words, it sounds as if my lady judges people by their looks. Then allow me to ask, if I, Jiang Mushen, were as repulsively ugly as the rumors say, would my lady no longer wish to marry me? For some reason, I thought of Qian Miao's ugly face and replied, the general misunderstands that I'm not the sort to judge by outward appearance. The man across from me raised an eyebrow. Is that so? But I've heard that my lady and the Prince of Wei grew up together, in perfect harmony. Now you come asking me to marry you. Is it because your heart is truly with me? Or are you hoping to gift me a superb green hat? As he finished, Jiang Mushen's eyes flicked to the green skirt I was wearing. Damn it, I had definitely worn the wrong outfit. Clutching my sleeves, I took a breath. Though the Prince of Wei and I grew up together, our relationship has always been pure and proper. There has never been anything improper. Please be assured of that, General. Jiang Mushen suddenly rose and walked toward me, stopping only half a step away. With his towering frame, the pressure was immense. But the next moment, he said softly, "I believe you, my lady." I looked up at him. His gaze was deep, swimming with unreadable emotion. However, I would still like to see my lady's resolve. As he said this, he dipped his head until his face was just a palm's width from mine. Staring at his sharp, thin lips, my heart nearly stopped that I stepped back, steadied myself, and said, "I don't want to lie to you that I did once like the Prince of Wei. But if we marry, as long as you treat me well, and with a face like yours, I should probably, maybe, possibly no. I will do my utmost to give my heart entirely to you." The smile at Jiang Mushen's lips deepened. "Very well. Then please, my lady, return and await good news." On the way back, Ian kept buzzing in my ear, asking if that ugly winter melon had taken advantage of me, with one hand massaging my weak legs and the other pinching the small of Ian's back. I warned, "Ian, remember this. From now on, you must never speak ill of Jiang Mushen, not even in your head. That man is unfathomable. No ordinary person, we can't afford to offend him. Ian squealed in pain, blinked, and could only nod frantically in agreement. For the next several days, I had no appetite for food or drink, restless whether sitting or standing, waiting anxiously for word from Jiang Mushen. What I got instead were rumors that he fancied Zhong Yue, and that the emperor intended to issue a marriage decree that I spat. That bastard Jiang Mushen is playing dirty with me. Then I tucked my night pearl into my clothes and rushed to the palace. The Empress Dowager looked troubled and said the emperor and she had long intended to announce my betrothal to the Prince of Wei. But for the moment the priority was to settle the alliance marriage. Our union would have to wait, that I pleaded for a long while. But the Empress Dowager gave no definite answer, only telling me to return and wait. Dejected, I had just stepped over the threshold of her chamber when I was yanked into a corner by Yu Rang, who had hidden behind the vermilion doors at some unknown time. His face was full of fury. I helped you win that night pearl back then, not so you could use it to reject the marriage. I shook off his arm and turned away. I won it fair and square. Hot if I hadn't sent someone to secretly assist you. How could you have scored that final goal? So that unfamiliar young player at the polo match was one of his men. I hugged the night pearl tighter. There's no if. A win is a win. Instead of blaming me now, Prince Wei should blame himself for helping me in the first place. Lin Erhuan, you. He let out a long sigh. Why do you hate me so much? You weren't like this before. I'm not even the same person today as I was yesterday, let alone back then that I used to give you my whole heart, and you treated it like filth. Now that I've stopped, why are you so unwilling? My surname is Lin, not Jin. There's no reason to keep being treated coldly and still relish it. Is it because of Chai Qingxue? Is that why you're treating me like this? I can explain. I don't like her. Before, I was just irritated by how you clung to me. That single line instantly made me sick. So you used her as a shield. How wonderful. Truly wonderful. The self-proclaimed righteous Prince of Wei actually dares to say something so despicable. I thought about how I'd once harmed Chai Qingxue for the sake of someone like him. And in that moment, I loathed myself and felt nothing but guilt and pity for her. Tears welled up in my eyes and then spilled over all at once. You never liked me, yet you never pushed me away. You never liked Chai Qingxue either, yet you never told her. She and I spent years as enemies because of you, and it was all for nothing. Silence hung for a long while before Yu Rang finally lifted his head, his voice almost pleading. Erhuan, yes, I was wrong before. I'll apologize to Chai Qingxue. I'll apologize to whoever you want. But can you stop running from me? Give me a chance to make it up to you, all right? I let out a cold snort. It can't be made up, and I don't want it. My words made Yu Rang stumble as if he might fall. He steadied himself, pressed his lips tight, and the sadness in his eyes receded, replaced by a flash of ruthlessness. Fine, no more might have beens. Lin Erhuan, no matter how much you despise me, you won't escape marrying me. I will marry you. He turned and strode away, sleeves billowing. Though his bearing was fiercer than mine, he looked like a soldier fleeing in defeat. Over the next half-month, Yu Rang sent men with betrothal gifts every single day, and I chased them all off with shouts and blows that I thought about marrying someone else. But the whole capital was buzzing with news of my betrothal to the Prince of Wei. No one dared to marry me. No one even wanted to. I even thought about running away. I wrote a letter to Qian Miao to pass through Jian Yueqing. Qian Miao, would you dare defy everything and take me away? But after a bitter laugh, I crumpled the paper. He was just a guard. Why would I drag him into this? I even thought about ending it all. But after I hung the white silk from the beam, I climbed down from the stool. After I sharpened the dagger and nicked my finger to test the edge, I put it down again. I mixed rat poison into syrup and fed it to the osmanthus tree outside. I'm not sure the tree will survive, but plenty of ants beneath it died from the poison. Bah. What karma? Just as I was beginning to lose all hope, something happened to the crown prince. He had embezzled relief funds for the southern floods, enraging the emperor. But the crown prince wept and wailed before the emperor, accusing the Prince of Wei of framing him. Yu Rang was placed under house arrest, pending an investigation. I knew Yu Rang well. He was ambitious, eager to prove his talent at court and win the emperor's favor, but he would never harm his own brother. I didn't want to marry Yu Rang, but I also didn't want to see him falsely accused, his name dragged through the mud, forced to bear an injustice he didn't deserve. Then the tables turned quickly. General Zhong and a group of veteran ministers presented evidence to the throne, proving the crown prince's embezzlement. Prince Wei was cleared. After that, the ministers raked up the crown prince's trail of crimes over the years, and as the emperor had once doted on the crown prince, he loathed him all the more when faced with his deception, disobedience, ingratitude, and cruelty. Finally, on the day of Li Xia, it was proclaimed to all under heaven. The crown prince was deposed, but what I never expected came next. Just before Xiaoman, the emperor issued a marriage decree between Yu Rang and Zhongyu. Unlike the rumors that had once swirled around me and Yu Rang, this time no one could defy it. The decree was written in the emperor's own hand, though. Crisis averted. I was curious how everything could change so drastically in just 3 months. But like everyone else, I never found out. Still, not marrying Yu Rang was a good thing for me. Yet what people said was utterly vile. Rumors spread through the city that I, daughter of the Marquis of Ning, had lost my parents early and offered Prince Wei no political advantage, so he cast me aside for Zhongyu. They also dragged out Jiang Mushen, that obscure general sent as a marriage envoy, saying Zhongyu had scorned him. He'd come to the capital to ask for her hand only to be rejected and left covered in disgrace. I figured that after a while, fresh gossip would drown out the old. Rumors live and die with the next big thing. But 10 days passed, and the talk only grew louder. Prince Wei and General Zhong would leave court together, and Jiang Mushen and I were dragged into the conversation as pitiful figures. Annoying? Honestly, yes, a bit. 3 days later, the Empress Dowager summoned me to the palace. When I entered the hall, I found both the Emperor and Jiang Mushen already there. The tables were set for a feast. I was still sizing up this strange arrangement when the Emperor spoke, saying I shouldn't believe the rumors that he had already decided from the start to bestow Zhongyu to Prince Wei and had long ago designated me as the candidate for the marriage alliance. It was only because Prince Wei and Jiang Mushen had entered the palace one right after the other that a whole chain of misunderstandings arose. I rolled my eyes. Misunderstandings, my ass. You're lying through your teeth. Just as I was giving the Emperor a flat look, the Empress Dowager shot me a warning glance. I turned to Jiang Mushen for help. But he wasn't looking at me. He rose from his seat, walked to the center of the hall, and cupped his fist in a bow. Your subject, Jiang Mushen, humbly thanks His Majesty for the marriage decree. I was speechless. The Emperor gave me a sidelong glance. What's the matter? Does the princess have some complaint about my arrangement? Those words sent a cold shiver down my spine. I shook my head like a rattle drum, quickly stepped up beside Jiang Mushen, and bent into a graceful bow. Your subject humbly thanks His Majesty for the marriage decree. The Emperor nodded, satisfied, and motioned for us to sit and eat. Every bite at that table felt like chewing wax. I sneaked several looks at Jiang Mushen. He just smiled at me, raised his glass, the same placid, unreadable expression. Not only had he failed to win his true heart's desire, He'd also been forced into marrying me, and now he still had to sit there grinning through the pain. Poor man, truly born under an unlucky star. The third time he toasted me across the distance, I clinked my glass back and drained it in one gulp. We really are both creatures of pity, aren't we? After the feast ended, the emperor called Jiang Mushen aside to discuss matters, and I stayed behind with the Empress Dowager. She offered words of comfort and explained that sending me off to this marriage alliance had been a necessity. When Jiang Mushen left the Hall of Diligent Virtue later, he came out with something extra, the title of Marquis Dingen. After the rumors died down, Ian was checking the dowry at home, and I slipped out to clear my head. Passing by the Chancellor's mansion, I saw Chai Qingxua loading box after box onto a carriage, ready to leave. That I hurried over and asked where she was going. She said she was off to find someone very important. At parting, standing below the carriage and looking up at her, I finally said, "I'm sorry." She paused, then broke into a radiant smile. "I should be thanking you that if not for you, I might never have met the one I truly love." I froze. So it turns out, like me, she too had been given a second chance by fate. Then we exchanged a smile, silent but understanding. That a summer evening breeze blew, and years of enmity dissolved in an instant. I watched her carriage disappear, thinking how foolish it was to spend a lifetime as enemies with such a clever, courageous woman. Yes, I turned. "I saw you," Rang approaching, eyes full of sorrow that we hadn't met in days. And he looked haggard. "I dreamt last night that I stabbed you. After you married me, I treated you badly. Later, you died on a winter night, and to the very end, I never once came to see you. Erhuan, tell me, is it true?" By all rights, I should have let spite take over and told him viciously, "Yes, it's true." But looking at his grief-stricken face, I remembered that in our younger days, he had been kind to me too. Forget it. Now, of all times, why carve out his heart with cruel words and trouble the rest of his life? All that chasing the wife to the crematorium drama. Not worth it. Having someone pine for your whole life isn't such a great thing. That I gave a faint smile. That's why I said it was just a dream. He tried to press further, but I pulled my sleeve from his grasp and smiled gently. "Prince Wei's wedding to General Zhong's daughter is imminent. Don't cling to the past and wound your future wife." He looked dazed, lashes trembling, but finally let go. That I bade a quiet farewell and turned away. At the corner, I glimpsed him still standing there, the setting sun stretching his shadow long. I paused, brushed aside the hair in my eyes, and continued towards Xianshu Tower to buy Ian's favorite egg yolk pastries. Any later, and they'd be sold out. Half a month later, the Empress Dowager and the Emperor bade Jiang Mushen and me farewell. We set off for his domain. Dressed in my splendid wedding robes, a flower crown of jade and kingfisher feathers on my head, I stiffened my neck and, supported by Ian, slowly walked out the gate. Through the pearl curtain, I saw Jiang Mushen in full armor by his fine horse, dashing and bold, beaming with joy. Beside me, Ian's eyes went wide, and I had to pinch her several times before she came to. He was so tall, his form blocking the harsh sunlight. He reached out to help me into the carriage. As I took his hand, I glimpsed his long, elegant fingers, strong. But before I could look closely, the curtain fell. Inside, Ian stared at me and muttered, "The Marquis is so handsome. Whoever said he was ugly must have pus in their eyes." I ignored her, leaned against a dowry chest, and closed my eyes. Along the way, drums and gongs sounded. Congratulations rang out at the city gate. Ian lowered the side curtain and whispered, "My lady, I just saw Prince Wei." I didn't look up, just hummed. Saw him. So be it. But from now on, let's not mention him again. Once outside the city, Jiang Mushen ordered his men to ride hard. So within 3 days we reached the Yuqiao Pass. And no sooner had we crossed than Jiang Mushen called from outside the carriage. "Miss Ian, may I come in and speak with my wife?" I'd just taken off the heavy flower crown, so I hurriedly put it back on, straightened up, exchanged a glance with Ian, and said, "General, we haven't yet performed the wedding rites. Tea wouldn't be proper." The moment I finished, Jiang Mushen abruptly lifted the curtain and laughed. I never knew my wife was such a stickler for rules. He glanced at Ian. She flinched and bolted without looking back. Though tall and broad, he moved with agility. A long leg swung in, and he was inside, a wooden box in hand. Settling down, he held the box between us, a gift for my wife. I forced a laugh. "We've met before, General. You're too kind." His eyes curved. "Precisely because we've met before, I had to give you something." He shook the box gently. "Open it. There's a surprise." Not wanting to be rude, I took the box, set it on my lap, and lifted the lid. Inside lay a fierce, hideous Taotai mask. "You're—" My eyes went wide as I stared at Jiang Mushen's smiling face. Every word stuck in my throat. Then suddenly my feet left the floor, the box toppled, and he pulled me into his arms. That he lifted my pearl curtain, and his lips met mine. That we kissed until our breath tangled. Forehead to forehead, he murmured against my mouth, "I've wanted to do that for so long." My heart pounded. Gasping, I squeezed out through clenched teeth, "Qian Miao, you damn schemer." He raised 4 fingers by his ear with a perfectly innocent look. "I swear, I only schemed against others, never you." I seized the chance to jump out of his embrace, sat back in my spot, and glared. "No more talking. Now I ask, you answer. You will tell me the truth. If you dare hide anything, may your children be born without an anus." Jiang Mushen rubbed his chin. "Isn't that a bit harsh, to curse our future children?" I yelled, "Stop talking." He leaned forward, took my hand, and said softly, "Don't be angry. Let me tell you everything, all right?" He spoke slowly. "The emperor has long been wary of my father, and father worried day and night. As it happened, Jian Yueqing is a close friend of mine, so I disguised myself and came to the capital as his guard to gather information. That first day in the palace, I ran into you and Miss Chai brawling. As we spent time together, I began to want to marry you. When I entered the palace that day, I intended to ask the emperor for your hand, but Prince Wei went ahead of me, so I changed my plan on the spot." A sudden shock jolted through me, and I lowered my voice. "What did you do?" "The crown prince's fall, Prince Wei's house arrest. Were you behind it?" Jiang Mushen gently rubbed my wrist. The crown prince had long lost the way. The ministers all favored Prince Wei to succeed. Although the emperor doted on the crown prince, he also recognized Prince Wei's capabilities. If I had openly opposed him, wouldn't that plant trouble for our future together? And then, thus, I spread word that I had taken a fancy to General Zhong's daughter. Everyone knew Zhong Yu was infatuated with Prince Wei, and General Zhong, doting father that he was, would never want her married off to the frontier. So even though he'd always stayed neutral in the power struggles, he had no choice but to lean toward Prince Wei. Jiang Mushen took a breath and continued. When the crown prince embezzled funds meant for relief after the Jiangnan floods, the emperor flew into a rage. That I applied a little pressure to make the crown prince's faction turn on Prince Wei. At that point, Prince Wei needed an elder of high prestige to vouch for his innocence. Chancellor Chai had long been bedridden and unable to step up, which left only General Zhong. In exchange for clearing his name and seizing the throne, Prince Wei had no choice but to marry Zhong Yu. A chill crept up my spine as I pulled my hand from his grip. "Jiang Mushen, that's one hell of a scheme." He glanced at my hand. It wasn't my scheme. It was human nature. Prince Wei wanted power, the crown prince was jealous of him, and General Zhong loved his daughter. All I did was add a little oil to the tinder, to make the fire burn hotter and faster. I shot him a look. You said you never schemed against me. And what about all the rumors that followed? And here I was, thinking you'd been forced to marry me. He gave a sheepish chuckle and grabbed my hand again. My fault. My fault. That really was wrong of me. But to make amends, didn't I have them spread word that Zhongyu rejected me? My voice rose. You actually have the nerve to say that. Even the Emperor and Empress Dowager fell for your tricks, you sly fox. He put a finger to his lips. Shoo. Keep it down. Unless you want to be a widow before we're even married? Drop dead. I shot back, shoving him. If it weren't for your luck that the crown prince fell apart, you'd have been a toothless rat living in a hole. He clasped his hands behind his head and laughed. But there's no if. Besides, if that plan didn't work, I had others. I'd have gotten you out of the capital and married you one way or another. Big talk, I muttered, when he raised an eyebrow, giving me that believe it or not look. Curiosity got the better of me anyway. What other ideas did you have? He smirked. My father never wanted to fight the court, but the emperor was a suspicious man and distrusted father's control over his fiefdom. Before I left, father gave me his governance seal and told me to present it without fail if things had worked out as you said, and the crown prince hadn't fallen. I'd have handed over the seal anyway and asked the emperor for your hand in marriage. Mind you, that would have meant making an enemy of Prince Wei. And you didn't present it? Of course I did, at a piece of jade to buy the emperor's peace of mind. Why not? Besides, without that, your husband wouldn't be sitting as Marquis Dingen today. Watching him glow with self-satisfaction, I felt both irritation and joy, annoyed that he'd hidden it from me, but heartened that he'd gone to such lengths. Racked his brain. Just to marry me. I turned, grabbed the Taotai mask from the dowry chest, and hurled it into his lap. Bitterly I said, mask after mask after mask. I bet you wouldn't have enough even if you had 1,000. Jiang Mushen laughed heartily. Then he scooped the mask off the floor and, together with the one from the chest, flung both out the carriage window. I let out a small exclamation. Hey, he winked at me. No more masks from now on. Fine. Then I never did learn to wear them properly anyway. I still had questions, like when he first started thinking about me, since he said the desire to marry me grew gradually. But I'm no fool. From the very first time I saw him at the carriage, when he eagerly offered his hand and let me accidentally grip his finger, I'd had a faint suspicion it was on purpose. You scoundrel, I cursed. He laughed and pulled me close. In this life, let's not miss each other again. Jiang Mushen paused to catch his breath, then continued. When the crown prince embezzled the flood relief funds for Jiangnan, the emperor was furious. So I gave things a little nudge to make the crown prince's faction turn on Prince W. At that point, for Prince Wei to clear his name, he needed a highly respected elder statesman to vouch for him. Chancellor Chai had long been bedridden and couldn't step forward, which left only General Zhong. In exchange for being exonerated and seizing power, Prince Wei had no choice but to marry Zhongyu. A chill ran down my spine as I listened. I pulled my hand from his and said, Jiang Mushen, your scheming is ruthless. He glanced at my hand. It's not ruthlessness. It's human nature. The crown prince envied Prince Wei. Prince Wei craved power, and General Zhong adored his daughter. All I did was pour a little oil on the firewood, so the flames would burn hotter and faster. I shot him a look. You said you never schemed against me. So how do you explain all those rumors that came after? And here I was thinking you'd been forced to marry me. He gave a sheepish laugh and grabbed my hand again. My fault. My fault. That part really was wrong of me. But to make amends, didn't I also have it spread that I'd been rejected by Zhongyu? My voice shot up. You have some nerve. Even the Emperor and the Empress Dowager were fooled by your fox spirit tricks. Jiang Mushen pressed a finger to his lips. Shoo. Keep your voice down, my lady. Unless you want to become a widow before we're even wed. Drop dead, I said, shoving him back. You just got lucky. If the crown prince hadn't fallen, you'd be nothing but a rat in the ceiling, scurrying in the dark, getting nowhere. He clasped his hands behind his head and grinned. But there is no if. And besides, if that plan hadn't worked, I had others that I was going to make sure you left the capital and married me, one way or another. Sure, keep bragging, I said, pouting, but when he arched his brows with that believe-it-or-not look, curiosity got the better of me. All right, what other schemes did you have? The corner of his mouth curved up. My father had no wish to antagonize the court. The emperor is naturally suspicious and never felt at ease with the little bit of autonomy my father held over his domain, so before I left. My father gave me the governing seal and told me I must hand it to the emperor. If things had gone as you said, with the crown prince still safe, I would have presented the seal and personally asked the emperor for your hand out, of course. That would have earned me Prince Wei's lifelong enmity. So you didn't give over the seal? I asked. Of course I did. Why not trade a lump of stone for the emperor's peace of mind? Besides, without it, that title of Marquis of Dingen would never have landed on your husband's head, he said, looking insufferably pleased. Seeing his smug face, I felt a rush of both anger and delight. Anger that he'd kept all this from me. Delight that he'd racked his brains and schemed so relentlessly just to marry me that I pulled the porcupine mask from my dowry chest and hurled it at his chest. So many masks, and still can't show your true face, I said bitterly. Jiang Mushen burst out laughing. Then he picked up the Taotime mask from the floor and, together with the porcupine mask in his arms, tossed both out the carriage window. That I let out a small exclamation. Hey, he winked at me. No more masks from now on. Fine. Then that I never did learn how to wear the things properly anyway. That I still had questions, like when he'd first started caring for me. He said the desire to marry me grew over time. So why had he egged me on to steal that night pearl the second time we met? And then we never even put it to use. But as I was about to ask, he cut me off. Too many stories that I'll tell you slowly later. With that, he plucked the flower crown from my head, tossed it aside, and held out his hand with a smile. Come on, it's stuffy in the carriage. Let's ride. His mood was contagious. I smiled, gave him my right hand, and let him lead me out. As we pushed open the carriage curtain, there was Anne rubbing a red, swollen bump on her forehead, looking aggrieved. How can the Marquis just throw things and hit people? Jiang Mushen and I both burst out laughing at the same time. The sky stretched high and wide, cloudless and cleared. We rode together on a fine horse, our wedding clothes billowing in the wind, laughter echoing across the grasslands, galloping free, utterly and blissfully alive.